post this on the ticket? That's what I don't understand. She didn't know the name of the trust. She didn't have a trust.
Okay, I would like to call this meeting of the Merrimack School Budget Committee to order. I ask that you all please rise and join Kevin Bobbitt in the Pledge of Allegiance of our country's flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Tonight, we're going to be reviewing warrant articles and then having a work session. Before we get started with that, I got to do the old phone call thing and get Carol Lang on the line.
You saw you were one of the 3 weeks?
Hello.
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine.
Well, we got to do the same thing we did every meeting. You are where?
Satellite Beach, Florida.
And did you get to watch the rocket launch?
I certainly did. I went down to the beach instead of watching from my house, so I not only saw the launch, I saw the rockets come back down.
And is there anybody with you this evening?
Just Ginger.
Okay. And for the record, Ginger is her cat and our mascot.
Yes.
We're going to be starting off...
Longest serving feline on the committee.
That's right. We're going to be starting with warrant articles, then doing a work session. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to the administration for the presentation of the special warrant articles. And Matt, what I'd like you to do is present a warrant article. We'll discuss that one, and then when everybody's happy, we can move on to the next one.
Yes,
Dan,
sir.
could I interrupt for a second to ask you something?
Sure, as long as you realize everybody else is going to hear it too.
That's fine. I never got the copies you were going to send me of the warrant articles, and are we actually voting on them tonight or just hearing them tonight?
We can do either or, and I had sent them to you a week ago.
That's weird. I never got them.
I'll send them to her.
Jordan's going to send them right now to your email.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, last night the board took action on all of the warrant articles that are here before you. This is what they intend to present at the deliberative session. The votes are all there as far as for and against. All the warrant articles were voted on unanimously by the board, 5-0-0. The first article that you have for your consideration is the proposed contract between the Merrimack School Board and the Merrimack Educational Support Staff Association. The Merrimack Educational Support Staff Association contains around 309 individuals. They are custodians, they are food service personnel, they are paraprofessionals, they are administrative assistants, and a few other categories that I'm probably missing. But they are our backbone. They're our support staff that help with children and help with building needs and help with the food service program. This is a 3-year contract. It contains a 3% increase per year. It also contains a 1% per year health concession. So the support staff, who currently pay 9%, and the district pays 91%, in 18-19 it'll be 90-10, in 19-20 it'll be 89-11, and in 2021 it'll be 88-12. All told, that concession saves us around $150,000 using the current year's pricing and the current demographic of the group. This article, like I said, is for 3 years. It appropriates in 1819 $245,594. In 1920, $249,883, and in 2021, $262,199. It includes all the FICA, Medicare, New Hampshire retirement. It also includes, at our option, this is one thing that we wanted to have, is we wanted to extend the 190-day administrative assistance to 195, because we need them to come in 5 days earlier in the summertime to get ready with online registration, power schools, student enrollments, everything like that. And that was imperative for them to do that, and they agreed to extend their work year. We also offered them life insurance for $25,000 a year. Currently in the contract, there's a death benefit of $7,500. The teachers have life insurance of $50,000. We thought it was fair to offer the support staff life insurance of $25,000 a year. This also gives us the option of offering the lower cost site of service health plan that currently is offered to the teachers. We signed a sidebar agreement that'll make it available to them in the first year of the contract, 18-19. That's a lower cost plan, and anybody who shifts to it actually saves the district more money. So MESA made a 1% health care concession each year of the contract, and they also allowed us to offer the site of service plan, which is at a reduced premium to the district and saving us money. So that basically is Article 3, and it was voted by the board 5-0-0.
Matt, would you also just go over some approximate wages that these folks get,
Sure.
please?
If you're a paraprofessional, you're starting off, you can make maybe $16,000 a year. These are school year employees. A custodian, pay maybe $22,000, $23,000 a year. This is probably maybe average, and they work a full year. Food service people, $6,000 to $8,000 a year perhaps. That's what they're making, because they only come in for a little bit in the morning and to serve lunch, and then they're gone in the afternoon. So these are not highly paid employees. In a lot of cases, the cost of their health insurance far exceeds the amount that they make in salary. So that's what we're talking about as far as ranges go.
And they're some of your hardest working people, too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Questions for Matt or the administration? Kevin?
Hi, Matt. I have a question in terms of, you said it was 3%. So is it a straight 3% raise per person every year? Or is there anything in the new contract that takes into account the quality or the level of, the quality of the employee, how well they do, or is it just years of service?
It's not a merit-based system, but it's not a straight 3% across the board every single year to all categories. There's a scale where when you come here, you'll get more of an increase your first few years, and then it kind of tails off to the end. So when I take all that and place everybody on the salary chart, it works out to an average of 3%. But some could get 4, some could get 2.5. It all depends.
Okay, but everybody does qualify for it regardless
That's
of
correct.
merit.
Yep.
Okay.
Carol, do you have anything?
No, I'm all set.
Anybody else? Just as a reminder, when the Budget Committee votes on any of these special warrant articles, we vote it up or down. We cannot change anything in the warrant article. Moving on. Next article, Matt.
Okay, the next article is Article 4. It's just a trailer. You don't have to vote on this. And it's just to say, you know, can you call a special meeting to give the school board the option without going to Superior Court? So that's something that's there for your viewing, but you don't need to take a vote on it.
Well, it's there for our viewing, but if that happened, we would have to take a vote on the
Yes.
dollar amount proposal before it went to a deliberative session.
Let me explain how that would all happen. If the article failed, Article 3, the MESA contract, then the board at its option would say, okay, to MESA, would you like to go back in negotiations? And they can only negotiate on cost items only. So other language changes that were in the contract, that's all off the table. It's just money. And then if the board and the association would come to an agreement, then that number would go into a warrant article. That number would go into a deliberative session. You would vote on it as a budget committee before it went to a deliberative session. So it's like this same process all over again, and then everybody would vote on it in the ballot. But it just gives the two sides the options to get together and talk about money, and that's it. And then it would go to you again.
Thank you.
Okay. Article 5 is to replenish our school district repair capital reserve fund. This was established a number of years ago. We've used this just recently with the Mastercola Upper Elementary School bat remediation project. We took around $225,000 from this fund, leaving around $5,000 left in it. And so now it sits with $5,000, or shortly after the paperwork transfers over and everything like that. And so this is to take from the 17-18 surplus, $150,000 to fund it, or 10%, whichever is less. And if there's no surplus, then this article doesn't get funded. So this is to replenish that fund. We've used it for the road to the back of the high school, going down to the lower softball field when that got washed away several years ago. That was an emergency expenditure, and there's several other items that we have used it in the past. And the most recent, it was very handy coming in to fund the potential $600,000 cost of the project for the bat remediation at J. Muse.
Questions on this warrant article? Quiet bunch tonight, Matt.
Okay.
Moving on.
Article 6 is to raise $214,826 for the purpose of pavement reconstruction at Thornton's Ferry. This is in the circle where the buses pull in, turn around, and then the lower parking lot. These two areas are in great disrepair. We'll give you some pictures so you can see the pavement, but it's all spider webbed and it's all full of crack sealing and everything right now, and it's just it's time. Its time was probably around 4 years ago, but now it's really time.
And there are a lot of divots from car tires and school bus tires.
Yeah, absolutely. It's taken a lot of punishment, and it hasn't been resurfaced since I've been here, so I don't know how long it's been that way. It's we've tried, to keep it going, but it's met its useful life. It's beyond its useful life. So this is we really need to do this kind of article, and the school board voted for this one 5-0-0 also.
Questions for Matt about this? Heather?
Just because I don't know a lot about this kind of work, are they actually going to rip up what's there and lay down something new, or are they just paving over what's currently there?
Yeah, what we do, just to give you a little more information than you asked for, is we partner with the town, and we put this in their bid specifications because they pave a lot of roads. And so when Kyle Fox, the DPW manager, goes out to bid for paving, resurfacing roads, our little portion is in there. We did that with the track, actually. We did this with this sidewalk out, not the sidewalk, the front of the building that we repaved recently. And what it is a big machine comes in, crushes it all up, grinds it into pulp, and then levels everything out, and then does around a 2-inch thick resurfacing job on it. So it's just not paving over what is, because that wouldn't work, because the underlying material is compromised now.
Carol, do you have any questions?
No, I'm okay, all set.
Okay. David?
Why isn't this part of the operating budget, this particular line item?
Well, the board chose to put this in a warrant article. The operating budget is pretty lean. We wanted to keep it that way. And that was a school board decision in order to have the people give them the choice. They can go down to Thornton's Ferry, take a look at it, and see what they think. It's something that we urge people to do, but you know, it's important to us to get it done. But that was a board decision.
Yes, Heather.
Just following up with what David said, if for some reason, I can't imagine why, but if for some reason this wouldn't pass, is there any danger, risk, anything associated with not doing it for our students and our educators there?
No, there's no danger or risk. If let's say a section comes loose or something like that, we can always cold patch it and do what we've been doing. So there's no danger or risk. If it was one of these things where it was a public safety thing, kind of like the bleachers, which are in the operating budget, it would be in the operating budget as opposed to a warrant. Yep.
Any other questions? Keep going, Matt. You're on a roll.
Okay, this will perk up the crowd a little bit. Article 7. This is basically to raise $275,000 to purchase a property that we know as the Brentwood School, which is the red house right across from the greenhouse, right across from the blue house. This is in our campus right now. In fact, a lot of people already think we own that facility and it's part of the Merrimack School District, but it isn't. It's owned by Ceresc. Ceresc is selling it, and it's around a 10,000 square foot building right now, and it's on 0.68 acres that abuts our parking lot. So it makes sense for us to make an offer to purchase it. There's a purchase and sale drafted up. It was accepted pending a positive vote on this warrant article. And the intent is to next year look at it as a site for a new central office. So next year will be a year of exploratory and maybe some proposals coming in from some companies if we put out a request for proposal, and have them take a look at it and see what the cost of renovation would be. But that's the intent at this time.
Would you also please go into the condition of this building currently as it sits and what you feel they're going to have to do to make it usable for central office?
Well, I know, looking at it right now, the roofing needs to be redone. There's some siding that needs to come down. The HVAC system needs to be replaced. It definitely needs some renovation. The front entryway is not really ADA accessible, so that would have to be reconfigured. So there's going to be a cost to renovate this. This isn't move-in condition. There are some soffits that have some rotting segments to them that we have to remove and replace. So it's going to be a project, and it'll be interesting to see what the final numbers for reconstruction and reconfiguration into a usable space will be. But that's yet to be determined. But this is in no way a turnkey move-in central office without the outlay of some money in the following years, in the next years.
And is this also planned to have student services move there too?
Absolutely, yes.
So basically, you're going to have to gut the whole building, the roof, and a bunch of the walls, exterior walls.
those are your words, not
Yep, they're my
mine.
words. They put it
But
bluntly.
you're going to have to reconfigure some space. The siding is going to have to be redone. And, yeah, there's going to be some extensive renovations to it. So I'm not saying that it would be a total gut job, because, maybe there's some areas that we could use, but I'm not going to rule that out either.
And have you explored any approximate pricing to do stuff like this?
Right now, we have not, no.
And the other question I have is, what would happen to that parcel of land, with or without the building on it, should you decide renovating that building is not a good idea?
Well, you can always look at it, and again, that would be a discussion for the school board, as I look to my left at Naomi. And there could be other options. It could always can be used as parking. It could always be used as maybe, seeing it's adjacent to some of our property, maybe we could come up with some sort of plan that would make it an extended playfield or surface like that. Or it could be used for like a parent drop-off area. There's several areas. Or it could be used for some, now, as far as the building itself, yeah, I think that would be the other uses if it wasn't a viable option to renovate.
Questions about this? Yeah, right. Yeah. Amanda?
So, assuming that you end up getting funding to renovate the building, how long do you anticipate renovations to occur for, and what would happen to the old SAU office?
Well, first of all, the old SAU office would be leveled. Same thing probably with the Blue House. We would create probably a new traffic pattern in the high school. It's rather hectic there. If you've ever tried to get out between the hours of 2 and 2:30, there's a lot of activity, parent pickup, parent drop-off, so those two facilities would go. The renovation would probably take a year, I would say, to do. What else was your question? Did I answer your question, or was there something further?
You did, thank you.
Okay.
Kevin?
Thank you. First, I just want to say, for the record, I am in favor of some new SAU building. I've been in both the Blue House and the Green House, and they are horrible working conditions, I think. So I'll start with that. But from listening here, this is $275,000 to buy a piece of property and a building, but we have literally no idea how much it will cost to make it acceptable in terms of office space?
We have not gone out and received formal proposals yet.
Right.
To look at the cost of renovation.
There's been, I think, warrant articles, or at least discussions of other building options at some point, at least discussions, and they were for significantly more than $275, the numbers I heard. But do we know that this would be a cheaper alternative than something else, or are we just kind of hoping that?
The last discussion we had in front of the board, in front of the planning board, we had Paul Marinese come up, and he did a study on if we put a central office and attach it to the high school, what the cost of that was. He did a study of what a freestanding central office would be, and that figure came in at around $3 million. So I would venture to guess that this renovation of existing space would be less than $3 million. Plus, the location of it is excellent as far as we're concerned. But I would venture a guess that it would come in at less than building a standalone building with all the site work and the sewer hookups and the water and the gas and everything like that. I believe this building runs off of propane. It didn't hook up to the natural gas line when we did the gas conversion, so we'd have to do that piece. But I would say it would be less than building from scratch, yes.
Okay, that seems logical, but I guess it's hard to type or talk about hypothetical numbers, but it could potentially be $1 million to renovate? Or
Absolutely, it
Yeah.
could be, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
David,
What would the plan be for the building if in coming years renovation isn't approved or budgeted for?
What would the plan be
Could we use the building for anything, or would it just sit empty?
for anything as is?
Yeah.
Not without some sort of renovation, no.
Okay.
If you wanted to use it for casual use or whatever, there's some minor renovations and upkeep you could do, but to construct it and have it work as a central office, you would have to put some money into it.
All right, thanks.
Heather,
I just want to be sure that this gets on the record as well. If we don't purchase, if this fails and we don't purchase the building, Ceresca is going to sell that building.
Oh,
They're going to sell it to someone.
Yes.
And it's going to be in the property area of our school property here, right? So the benefit of us owning that building, ensuring that we know what's going in there, ensuring that we have control over that, there's a benefit to that may outweigh some of those costs.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, you have the assurance that it's used in the best interest of the school district, primarily for renovation of central office, but for whatever reason that it can be. So, it takes away those other options, where you could have something not in the best interest of the school district move in right there, right on our campus.
except the other side of the coin is, if it's a profit-making business, or even a not-for-profit business, that property would go back on the tax rolls.
It would go on the tax rolls, but I think it's probably, I don't know what the zoning is. Right now, it's probably zoned for school or something like that. I don't think you could put any commercial enterprise there. I don't see a Kentucky Fried Chicken going in on the corner, although the high school students may like that or may not. I don't know what the new rage is, Taco Bell maybe.
Dunkin' Donuts.
I would definitely go for Dunkin' Donuts. That would seem like a logical choice for me.
It'd make a fortune.
Off of me they would, yes.
Carol, do you have any questions? Ooh. No, I think we lost her. Hold on one moment, please.
Hello?
Hi there. I guess we lost you for a moment.
Yeah, I didn't know whether you knew you lost me. I tried sending you a text, but I didn't know if you had your phone on, so.
Okay. Well, now you're back.
Okay, are we still on the article about the future SAU?
Yeah, the new Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay. When you get through the people that already are in line to ask a question, I do have questions.
Well, actually, I was asking you and then saw that the call disconnected a second earlier.
Okay. If you lose me again, check your text, because that's how I tried texting both you and Pat.
Okay.
All right. So you ready for my questions?
Yes.
All right. Forgive me if I repeat anything, because I may not have heard something somebody else may have asked. But my first question is, can you give me an approximate comparison of the square footage of the existing SAU combined with the existing special services versus the potential square footage in the new building?
Okay, the two buildings are around, let's say, if you're just counting the first floor, it's like 1,000 square foot. If you count and that's basically what special ed uses, student services use.
Right.
Us, we utilize the basement, so it's around 2,000 square feet. That building right there is 10,000 square feet. The big advantage to that, and one of the areas that would take up most of the square footage, would be a conference room that we would have and we would use for, meetings and everything like that, because we don't currently have a conference room, if we have to, the superintendent was meeting with the Teachers Association today, and, the conference room was the kitchen, so I had to wait to get my lunch for a couple of hours, which didn't go over too good, but that's okay. I can deal with that. But, that's the bulk of the square footage. So we're looking at around usable space, 3,000 versus 10,000.
Okay, so I'm assuming we're not going to make a 7,000 square foot conference room, so what are we going to do with the rest of that space?
Well, you have to remember we have people on the staircases right now and jammed in all over the place, so we would give them proper offices. The original central office project that we were looking at to get everybody in there in proper offices that we wanted to was around 8,800 square feet. So this is a little bit over that. And perhaps some of it...
Okay, all right, that makes more sense to me that way then.
Yeah.
Now my other question is going to be a hard one to get at, because you said you don't really have any idea on what it's going to cost to renovate it. Can you refresh my memory on what we were looking at the last time we proposed building a whole new building for this purpose?
When we were looking at a standalone building on O'Gara Drive, where the tennis courts are currently located or currently coming down, we were looking at a little over $3 million. The last time Paul Marinese, our architect, did a study on it. When we were looking at an addition to the high school, which was 1 story or 2 stories, it was $4 million. It cost more to do an addition to the high school because of code issues and everything like that. So the standalone building was around $3 million.
All right, and this building, we still have that advantage of it's not an existing school, so it doesn't have to be built to school standards, or does it have to be because it's going to include special ed?
No, it's not. It doesn't have to be built to school standards at all. It's just office space. And if there are kids that come in there, they just come and they go. There's no classrooms or anything like that in there. It's just a space where student services can meet with parents when they come in. The children usually come with the parents and maybe do some minor testing or something like that. It wouldn't be an educational space where that would be going on all day long.
Okay, now, here's where I'm really kind of pushing you out on a limb here. I'm just pulling numbers out of thin air. I'm not trying to hold you to these numbers. I'm not trying to hold myself to these numbers. But I'm saying to myself, okay, if I said on average actual new construction usually costs a little over $100 a square foot. So if I said do the same price of about $100 a square foot for renovation costs, I would come up with about $1 million as a completely out of the blue guess of renovation costs. And if that were even in the right ballpark, the $1 million combined with the 275 would be approximately 1.3 million. So it's a little less than half of what the cost of the previous plan is. Am I even in the right ballpark?
Well, the previous plan for new construction was around $240 a square foot.
Really? That much of a difference?
That's correct.
Now,
that's what the
renovating shouldn't cost quite as much as new construction, but it's still up there.
Yeah, the going rate for new construction for an office space around $240 a square, not counting site work or anything like that. So that's site work, engineering.
Okay, so using that number, which I think is probably high for renovation costs, but it might not be. So that would be 2.4 million plus 275,000. So now we'd be at 2.675. So it's still less. It's not as much less, but it's still less. So, I mean, is my thought even right that it shouldn't cost more to renovate than for new construction?
Well, that would absolutely be the goal, that we would look at estimates that it wouldn't make sense to renovate a building that would cost more than the new construction at all.
Right. 'Cause
So we would
that's
anticipate it
mainly,
would be less.
I'd like to come up with a way to be relatively certain. I know there's no certainty in anything, but be relatively certain that this is going to not cost more than the previous plan, and hopefully be a fairly good amount of savings compared to the prior plan.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah, well, there's other advantages, as Heather Gage had said just recently, that seeing it's in such close proximity to us, it is in our campus, basically. It really makes sense for us to own the property regardless, because of other uses that would be less desirable than us to have it for the sum of $275,000. You know, you can't get anything with 10,000 square feet, and even if you do a renovation for another purpose or whatever, it would be less than, you know, building a new building, I would say. But to put an exact number on it, we can't do this at that stage because we haven't looked at the current outline. We haven't hired an architect to go through and see what the cost of fitting the spaces that we need into this frame of a building footprint without extensive renovation would be. So that's something that we have to look at next year, 18-19, in hopes of coming up with, 17-18, in hopes of coming up with a plan for 18-19.
Okay, now obviously I've never even seen the inside of the red building. So just as a point of reference, can you tell me, is its condition better, worse, the same as the blue building?
Well, the blue building had the benefit of Hurricane Sandy and has a new roof on it. This one doesn't. So this would, the roof would have to be redone, siding would have to be redone, and the current spaces, which are kind of like classrooms, some walls would have to be moved around. You need new HVAC equipment to be installed in the building because everything isn't centralized, and there'd be some significant reconstruction that would need to be done in that building to make it the configuration that we were looking for. But there's always...
But there's no major issues like mold or anything that we know of?
No, there's no mold. There is no asbestos that we know of when we took a walk through there. So there's nothing like that.
Okay, and do we know whether Ceresc has other interested purchasers if we were not to buy this, or is there any chance that, I mean, obviously we would have to pass this article the way the article is written, but is there any chance that we might be able to negotiate that price downward?
This price already has been negotiated downward.
Okay.
This wasn't our first offer. It wasn't their first offer. We didn't shake hands and say it's a deal. This is a negotiated price down from an initial asking price that they had. And if the article doesn't pass, someone's going to buy it, and it behooves it to be us. So.
Okay. I think that answers all my questions for the minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. You could actually purchase that building, run a D10 right through it, and start from scratch and just use the foundation that's there.
Nothing is off the table. When you're looking at a renovation, sometimes that can be the plan. There could be portions. The building's 10,000 square feet. There can be portions of this building that don't fit into the schematic that we need or we don't need to, so those can be taken away, you know, to try and reconfigure everything. So
Is that a slab or is there a basement there?
there's a basement there.
Very big?
In portions, not a full basement, though.
There's like similar in size to the one that were on the plans for the brand-new building?
Oh, yes, correct.
And it's keeps water out, correct?
We didn't see any water or any thing like that or any telltale signs of it.
Okay. Other questions for Matt? John?
Any sign of bats?
We will do a full inspection of the premises. You know, before the vote, we'll be able to get in there and have an engineer go in and take a look at all the existing structures. And I didn't see any bats in there, nor did I smell any telltale signs of them. So, no. Thank you for that question, though.
How old is that building?
Built in the early 70s, I believe. Same vintage as the blue house and the greenhouse.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to do something a little different. I am going to ask the chairman of the School Planning and Building Committee, Rich Hendricks, if he has any comments or questions about this project. Well, you took the time to come out here, and I think you deserve the opportunity because you're in one of the groups that does the planning. And full disclosure, I'm on the Planning and Building Committee also.
My name is Rich Hendricks, and my name is Rich Hendricks, and I am chair of the Planning and Building Committee, and I appreciate the opportunity, Stan. We looked at O'Gara Drive quite extensively. For the record, I think $3 million is way over-exaggerated. However, let me think this through. Renovation usually is a higher cost than new. I do like Stan's question of tear it down and rebuild. Actually can be cheaper, but that is something that they will look at extensively, and we'll look at the numbers and put out the best proposal naturally. It kind of solves one of the big issues that people want existing spaces used. We've beat the existing school buildings to death. It just doesn't fit for a central office special service buildings. When you look at special services, many of these kids have had very bad experiences, anxieties about the school that they came from. So putting them back into the school really is not in anyone's best interest, excuse me, in that regard. It's the chief advantage is the size of the building. Although it may not be in that much better condition than the existing green, it still gives us a lot of flexibility. As Matt pointed out, you've got people just not in safe working conditions, to be blunt about it. You know, the superintendent is in a very, very small bedroom in a 3-bedroom house. She literally cannot have more than one person at a time in her office. So the privacy issues in those two buildings is basically non-existent. The big thing is the actual cost. To be blunt, I wish they had done a little homework and had a cost of an approximate cost of what the renovation inside that would be before going out and even putting it here. That is my concern. I know that's not what the board's looking like, and it's no reflection on Matt whatsoever. But I wish they would have had some kind of ballpark, because I've heard that from 4 people tonight, including myself, and I'm sure the committee on our excuse me, meeting on Monday will bring that up as well. That would be my only outright concern. We certainly wouldn't hold anybody to the penny on it. As Carol mentioned, if you're looking at $3 million, there is no way this building is going to come close to that. Because, like Matt said, you have all the utilities already there. Part of the O'Gara Drive was electric hookup, gas hookup, water hookup, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's not just digging a hole and putting a wire in. So it would be significantly cheaper than the O'Gara Drive, so we are excited about it, and we think it would be a great fit. Other than that, that would be our primary concerns right off the top of my head. I mean, we've spent some 10 years on this, and it keeps getting kicked down by school boards. There have been some pressing issues. The roof last year was a safety concern. We get it. It's got to be delayed. But this is a great opportunity to take advantage of something. And again, if Ceresco were to sell that, and again, I wish I did know what the zoning of it is, you have no control of what's basically on our property. Not officially, but officially. That's a huge concern. So the time is right to purchase this thing and go from there.
Heather?
Thank you so much for coming up. So, Mr. Hendricks, I want to make sure I'm clear. Do you support this warrant article?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things that you
Well,
mentioned...
you know what, let me go back on that. That's a personal opinion. We are going to be presented, excuse me, we have a meeting on Monday that our school board liaison, Andy Schneider, will be attending, and he is basically going to kind of conjure up this. So I should not state that the committee at this point on this Tuesday night has officially endorsed it. Me personally, from what I've heard, yes, but I cannot give a committee. I should
Absolutely.
backtrack on that.
That's fair. That's fair. So I want to, just two questions that I have. You mentioned, and I could be misinterpreting what you said. So you mentioned about students entering this facility with severe anxiety, that may cause some more. I just wanted to make sure that I heard you correctly, Matt, that students would not be entering this building for the purposes of education. They may attend a meeting with their parents, with Mr. Fabrizio and that kind of thing, but they would not be using this facility for educational purposes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Does that,
Oh,
did
absolutely.
I understand your
Oh,
concern?
yeah. I mean, it's still near a building, and a high school student, you know, it's next to the high school, may have, you know, some anxiety. Mr. Fabrizio actually meets people off campus, you know, that have some serious problems.
Sure.
So there may be still a few kids that just, you know, can't make it.
And I wouldn't expect that would
But-
change in his process.
No.
Yeah. So the other question that I had, and again, this just isn't my field, so I appreciate any thoughts that either one of you have on this, but you mentioned that renovation usually costs more.
The
Brand
rule,
new?
I mean, the rule of construction is yes. And that is a lot of times why you will see old houses burnt to the ground and then redone, and I use burnt as a,
Sure.
in quotation marks, and they'll redo it. And they'll say, oh, gee, why couldn't they save the old house? Well, because it would have been actually more. Because you are, although this isn't going to be built to school standards in the sense of, you know, you got to have hallways so much feet, and you got to have so much wires, and
Yeah.
you still have to bring it to building code. So,
Matt, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the cost of renovation's been my experience. When we put on the 3-story addition over here, where the main office is, that was one of my little first projects here in the district in 2001. Within that, there were renovations to other areas of this building. And those renovations were per square foot more expensive because you had the cost of demolition and you had the cost of bringing everything else in that area up to code. So you're really kind of expanding your scope because of that, because it triggers other things that you have to do unrelated to your project. Like, let's say you have to replace all the fire alarms in your building because of certain amount of square foot added on, and you're renovating existing. Now everything has to be tied in, and the renovations can be higher as far as that goes. This is one where it's anybody's...
Hello again.
Ah, this Carol.
Hey, I don't know if the problem is on your end or my end, but if you lose me again, try calling my house landline, my Florida house landline.
Okay, I got the number.
That's the difference.
Okay, I'll do that if we lose you.
Yeah, okay.
But I wouldn't think in this case where we're talking, you know, this building is built to office specifications. Obviously, we'd have to redo all the fire alarms and everything like that. But we're not required to have a sprinkler system in there. We don't have them in our offices right now because it's office space. Code wouldn't require that. The fire chief, that'd be a discussion I'd want to have with Mike Courier to make sure.
And something that I would completely support you having.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
But I would think and I would hope that the cost to renovate this building would be less than the $3 million mark that we were talking about last year.
So just one more follow-up question. So I know that a lot of us are, we would just really like to know what would it cost for a renovation and that kind of thing. But in order to do that, my assumption would be that we would have to have an architect or construction manager, engineer, maybe all three, that kind of thing, come in to be able to do a quality price for something like that. I'm just wondering, how much does something like that cost, not knowing if we're actually going to purchase the building?
Well, it helps if you own the building and you put a request for proposal to an existing facility that you have, and you would put out the RFP for design, build services, everything like that, and for renovation and cost estimates. And because you own the building, it makes the cost of the project that much more viable in construction companies' eyes. So I would probably say that they would do that as a service to us. How much would they bid to put this office in the configuration that we would like and the spaces we would need? And we could probably get that for nothing. They'd bid on the job. That's what we do. We put on an RFP.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't own the building and we have to hire somebody to come in, because I don't think anybody would give me an RFP in a building we don't own, because that's kind of a waste of their time, could be $50,000, $60,000 to get it done.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of your answers. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
More questions for Matt on this warrant article? Carol, you have anything else?
I'm all set.
Okay. Rich, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I appreciate
Thank you very
your time.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming tonight. We will move on.
The next article is to implement full-day kindergarten in the 3 elementary schools. The total cost is $878,450, of which $808,901 goes to salaries and benefits. These are your people to staff it, your teachers, the kindergarten instruction assistants. And then $69,549 is the amount of furniture, original equipping, text, materials, manipulatives, blocks, whatever you need. But basically, it's furniture and original equipping. The salary cost is $808. So that would be the cost of the full-day kindergarten program. That was voted unanimously by the board, 5-0-0.
Questions on this warrant article? Kevin?
Can you remind us how much money we might expect from the Keno in the state?
The Keno would be not come in the first year. It'd be the second year, $1,500 per student.
Quick math is how
Okay,
much?
240 times 1,500. That would
Okay.
be the Keno money.
Okay,
The
thank you.
first year would be like 1,100 per full-time kindergarten student, around 240, 270, something like that. That would offset this amount as
Okay.
an estimated revenue.
And I asked this last time, but the 808 is the recurring cost
That
going
is
forward.
correct, yes.
And likely to go up each year with salaries
Yeah,
and
with
benefits.
salary
but-
increases,
But roughly
yes.
808.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Heather?
This is one of those don't you think kind of questions, but so I had the opportunity to attend the school board meeting last night for very different reason, but stayed in to hear some of the information about the warrant articles, thinking that it would help me tonight. And some of the questions that came in the public testimony part I thought were fantastic, and one of them was, do we really think we need full-day kindergarten for everyone? The cost of that opposed to parent paying for the fee for the second half of the day, the cost factor there. And I think it's really important that folks know that the opportunity to get this additional funding through Keno for the full-day kindergarten does not mean that parents don't have the opportunity to also come and pick their child up at half-day. So if they do want their child to pick their if they do want to only participate in a half-day program, that's a possibility. And again, students aren't required to attend this program. This is an opportunity for our town, for Merrimack, to say that we believe that all students should have the right to have a full-day kindergarten program to start off their educational experience the way that it should be. So there's lots of different opportunities here for our kiddos, and I think it's really important that we let folks know that are going to be voting on this issue of those opportunities. So,
Okay.
don't you think?
Well, all I can say is, being an older person in the room, I went to full-day kindergarten when I was a kid, and that was in the 50s. I think it's a smart idea. Yes, it costs money. But given the fact that New Hampshire didn't really have much public kindergarten for the longest time, and as I remember, we were one of the last 10 school districts to adopt half-day kindergarten.
Absolutely.
I hope we're not one of the last 10 school districts to adopt full-day kindergarten. And do you have any of the information that I have heard in regard to the majority of the students doing better as they go on with their education?
Well, I could attempt to answer that, but why should I attempt that when I have, the top gun sitting behind me over here that can answer the educational questions? So I defer to the superintendent or the assistant superintendent, who's
Thank
ever
you very
coming up
much.
behind me.
So the real thing that you want to be about doing is trying to infuse the child with as much early learning as possible, especially in numeracy and literacy, because you want to try and have the child reading at grade level by 3rd grade. So everything that we can do early on is going to make a significant difference, hopefully, with their reading, which is just tantamount to everything that the student studies. A lot of research has been done, and it would say at some point in time it seems to even off a bit. However, it definitely, if you look at those children who have had kindergarten, from a point of how they fare later on, especially in perhaps social emotional areas, in getting a job and retaining that job, it definitely has positive results. And we have on our website, by the way, the Kindergarten Task Force has done a lot of study this year in preparation for coming to the board, and all that information, all those studies are on our website, so you could go there and see all the investigation that they did. Definitely, it would have a lot to do also in Merrimack with our economic development. We have a lot of young parents moving into Merrimack, and this is the first time I've been called in a long time with people moving in to find out about when we might have full-day kindergarten, because this is something they seek. So from an economic development point of view, we look at that not only for the benefit of the child, that's number one, but also for our community. We look at it as being a very positive force for getting people to come here and work in our business establishment, because the young families are looking for this. And so I point that out because I was just so surprised to get 5 or 6 calls from people who were seeking this, which I think is an important piece, economic development-wise.
Yes, Brandy, go right ahead.
Are you familiar with the surrounding towns of Merrimack, and are they offering it currently? So that way we can understand when we do have, to your point, families that are interested in moving in to our town or surrounding towns, is considering that that's a measure for them, where do we stand in comparison to our surrounding towns?
So it's so interesting, Brandy, you raised that up, because last night, one of the things we did at the end of the meeting was to give back a response to the board, because it had asked us to survey and find out what all of the towns in the state of New Hampshire had done. And a sheet was prepared by the Kindergarten Task Force to take a look at that. There are 182 entities represented on this sheet. 150 have full-day kindergarten, and the remaining 32 are in different states of being. There are, and I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I'll get the sheet for all of you. It is like 10 are considering it right now. 16 might have half-day, and then the others have a payment plan, if you will, where they go half-day, and then the parents pay for the other half of the day. And so there are 4 divisions representing 182 in total.
All set, Brandy? And on the ones that have to pay, didn't I hear somewhere they're not eligible for the Keno money or something?
That's what we're led to understand right now, and Matt has checked with the DRA on that, first of all, to make sure that we would have the $1,100 toward the offset. But our understanding is, if a district does not offer this to all of its children, then you're not entitled to the $1,100 per child.
Okay. Carol, do you have any questions?
Yeah, and one or two of them may be things that were discussed, because I haven't been able to hear everything that was said. But one thing is, if we offer this, if some parents choose that they do not want their children doing full-day kindergarten, are they still allowed to pay to go somewhere else for other kindergarten, or is this going to become a mandatory thing within the town?
I wouldn't use the term mandatory. I would just say that they have a choice. The way the statute is set up is, if you offer this program, the full day, a parent has the right to elect to only have half day. That's what Heather was saying previously, and that's written right in the statute.
Okay, now, as far as the Keno money, is that Keno money kind of open-ended, or is that only for a certain period of time that we would be able to get that, or unknown, or what?
Well, I think we're going year by year, but one of the things that we're guaranteed is that it will begin in the year 1819. That we're assured of. Matt has done checking with the DRA, and we have assurance on paper, as well as it being stated. The hope is, I believe in everything I've read, that over time, the amount hopefully is going to increase. And I would say, from everything I'm reading, Keno has been more successful right now than was even expected. So we're very hopeful. But all we are guaranteed right at the moment is the $1,100 for next year.
Yeah, I just want to second that, because I've heard that it's been stated that the revenue coming in from Keno far exceeded the state's expectation. So hopefully that will continue. Everybody knows that the New Hampshire State Lottery funds a portion of the school districts too. It used to be around $61 million for the state, comes from the New Hampshire State Lottery. I don't know what the number is now, but there's a tie there too, and there's a tie that's going to be starting off with Keno, and the Keno money coming into the state is, like I said, it's much more than anticipated. So one would hope, hearing that would be a recurring activity that the state presents to us, or an offer that they present to us, but we don't have any guarantees on that right now.
Okay, so now I took the $808 $1,901, and I divided that by the projection of 240 kindergartners, and I came up with a cost before any Keno money of $3,370 per student. I don't know why, but that number looks low to me. Am I doing something wrong in how I'm looking at this?
No, this is for the additional teachers and the kindergarten instructional assistants. So this includes
Right,
their
and
salaries.
then the other costs are one-time costs for the additional equipment. So I just took the $808,901 because that's the recurring thing, where as opposed to
Yeah.
the other was the original equipping. So I took the $808,901 and I divided it by the 240 projected students that you say you think could be enrolled.
But we already have kindergarten staff now, so this is for this isn't for 240 or 270, whatever the projection is. This isn't for the
Right, the
entire
240 is
cost.
what I'm using.
This is for the additional cost of those 4 or 5 teachers and 3 or 4 kindergarten instructional assistants.
I knew there was
with
something wrong
benefits.
with my logic and my math model, so, all right, that's where I was wrong. All right,
Okay.
so what I guess I'm really looking at is not counting one-time costs. What is it going to cost per student to educate a kindergartner if we do full day?
Carol, that's one we want to get back and share with you rather than just give it the answer right now.
Yeah, I'd like to calculate the costs with benefits, fully loaded of the current kindergarten program that we have now. I don't have that number off the top of my head, and then kind of give you that information at another point in time, if I could.
Okay. Yeah, if you could get that, and I mean, even if you can possibly email it to me so that I don't have to wait until the next meeting to kind of analyze it, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All set, Carol?
Yeah, other than my only other thing is a comment, which is back when we originally instituted half-day kindergarten, my thought at the time was, why are we doing half-day and not full-day? Because it seemed horribly inefficient to send the kids for half a day when a lot of the time is used up in transportation and unpacking and getting settled in, and the reverse on the other end, and you double that when you're doing half-day. So to me, it seems like you're probably getting more bang for your buck out of full-day kindergarten.
I would obviously agree with Carol and just say that, again, the Kindergarten Task Force has planned out what the program would be for full-time kindergarten students, and it's very comprehensive in its nature, and it adds to what we're already doing: music, art, physical education, science, social studies, and really, quite frankly, more literacy and numeracy, which is really what we're about doing. So we're fully planned to offer a full-day program.
All set, Carol?
Yep, that's it for me.
Heather?
Just one quick comment, possibly a question. So the other thing that we've heard in these discussions is, do we really want kindergarten kids, as young as they are, sitting in kindergarten classrooms with all of these, curriculum? We think, sitting in rows of desks and just with a teacher in front teaching at them. That's not really how our kindergarten classes are at all. They're very play-based. They, the numeracy and literacy is all through sitting with each other and using manipulatives and all of those kinds of things. Am I correct that that's true in Merrimack?
That is a true statement.
Can I give you a little anecdotal piece? I got an email today from Sheila Demers. She runs our preschool program for 3-year-olds to 5-year-olds, and the kids who were in the Mastrocola Elementary School, their windows are facing the bat deconstruction that was going on, and they took the polyurethane off the scaffolding and they exposed the scaffolding. And so I have a picture of these kids, because they were in the classroom at the time, because they had the experience, because they were with us, that actually were working in groups building a replica out of blocks of the scaffolding that was on the side of the building, and I've got a picture of that. And it's just so funny and so amazing that they got it pretty close, you know? So even at that young age, these kids were looking at something that they otherwise would never have seen, and then they got together as a group, and we've got some budding 3-year-old, you know, 4-year-old engineers going on there. So, you know, it's the experiences you have when you have them all day. You know, the social emotional experience, the learning that goes on, and I think most importantly, the contact with the classroom teacher and the evaluations that can go on earlier when you have them for a full day program. The teacher has more time to assess and to help and to get those kids off to a better start earlier in life than they would have with a half-day program. That's my thought. I'm with you, Stan. I went to full-day kindergarten, too, so it's something, when coming to New Hampshire 35 years ago, that I realized that not all towns didn't have public kindergarten. So this is something, you know, that we've been striving towards. We had half-day kindergarten for the 05-06 year. It's been 12 years. I think it's time to have full-day. 13? Yeah, 13 years. So now we think it's time to implement the full-day program.
Naomi?
I can't resist. Research was mentioned. I had the pleasure of being the representative of the board with the kindergarten workforce, and it was a pleasure to work with them and sit with them. But that means I also had a chance to hear what they were doing in terms of gathering research. And there was one point in particular that I wanted to make, and that is, Stan, you asked whether students who attend kindergarten do better in school. And that question has to be broken down. There is no evidence that simply labeling a room kindergarten and putting children in it leads to better achievement later on. And when you look at studies across the board that don't consider the quality of the program, you absolutely get results that say it's a waste of those children's time. So one of the things that's important here is that it's the combination of creating the full-day kindergarten and creating a quality program for the full-day kindergarten. And with that combination, there are all kinds of benefits that can be shown.
Thank you. I saw another hand somewhere. David?
Do you know what the $878,450 will do for the taxes? Estimate.
It's around, a million's around 30 cents on the dollar. So we're talking maybe 27 cents a thousand.
27 cents per thousand. Okay.
Not much, no.
Thanks.
Yeah.
John? Oh, I saw your head go up, just out of the corner of my eye. Anybody else? Brandy?
This is not really a question, but rather a statement to your point. I happen to have a child that is in the current existing kindergarten program and is thriving. He was in the preschool program last year at Reed's and is now at Reed's in kindergarten, and I would gladly let his kindergarten teachers work with him all day. They are amazing, and in so many ways I can see how the program that Merrimack has truly reached the foundation that I would be looking for as a parent for my child to have. So I just want to go on record and say that I am beyond thrilled that this is even coming to a warrant article position and that we have the opportunity to vote this in, because I am seeing firsthand what the benefit is of a quality program for preschool as well as kindergarten, and I have a middle child who also went through the kindergarten program and is now in 4th grade, again, still thriving. So I am just wanted to put that out there as well to speak to the quality, because it is definitively there in Merrimack.
Thank you, Brandy. Anyone else? Carol,
No.
you're all set? I think what you're doing is a fantastic idea. And I hope that between budget meetings, school board meetings, public hearing next week, we get a large contingent to come out and express their views, and hopefully they'll be all positive. The next warrant article is the operating budget. We will be doing a little work session here on the operating budget, and then we'll discuss a couple of other things. And with that, 8:18. Why don't we take a 6-minute break and then come back and we'll start our work session. So be back here for 8. We've got everybody back. I'd like to reconvene our Budget Committee meeting. At this time, we're going to start our work session on the operating budget. I just want to explain a few things so everybody here and everybody at home understands. If you have an adjustment, whether it be a cut or an addition, I do ask that you have the account number for it and the dollar amount. If you are looking to adjust a position, please state what the position is, and then we will attempt from Matt to get an approximate total cost of that position, because it's more than just what shows up as a salary line. There are a lot of other things that are entailed. We will discuss them and then vote on the adjustments. And then what will happen is next Tuesday, before the public hearing, we will do any finish-up work we have to, and we will also entertain any petitioned warrant articles that may or may not come in. We're also going to be doing minutes at the next meeting. The meeting will start at 7 o'clock. It'll end at it will suspend at 7:30 to open up the public hearing at 7:30. How long the public hearing goes depends upon how many folks we get here who want to come and talk and ask questions or make statements. After the public hearing, we will take a final vote on the operating budget. And if we have to reconsider some stuff, we can go through that process also. So at this time, I'm going to go around the table, and if you have any adjustments, we'll go around a couple of 3 times, I think, but who knows. I'm going to start off with a dollar amount and then work my way down, because usually what happens is the big ticket stuff doesn't get discussed very much, and the little ticket stuff, we could be here for hours. So I will start with Shelley. Do you have any adjustments over $50,000 you would like to make?
No, I do not.
Naomi?
No.
Amanda?
No.
Kevin?
No.
David?
No.
Jordan?
Nope.
Brandy?
No.
John?
No.
Heather?
No.
Okay. I'm going to drop it down. I'm sorry?
Carol.
Carol?
No, I wouldn't be yelled if I did.
I don't know. All right. I'm going to drop it down to $10,000. I'm going to start over at this side. Heather?
Not my original request, but I'll think about it. No.
Okay. John?
No.
Randy?
No.
Jordan?
Carol?
Nope.
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
Carol?
Nope.
Okay. We'll go back around again. Now it's 5,000.
No, I do not.
No. No.
No. No.
No.
No.
Yes, I do.
And what might that be, Heather?
So it's the conversation that I had last week about professional development for our school resource officers in the amount of predicting about $6,000.
Okay, so your motion is to add or subtract?
To add,
To add $6,000 to the professional development for resource officers.
and I would go with Matt's idea on this, but I believe the appropriate accounting number would be, it's a long number, 100-221345824100.
And that's a good figure, Matt?
And I do have some background documentation that I can provide to Matt
All right.
after this.
That's your motion. Do I have a second to Heather's motion? Seconded by Shelley. Take it away.
Okay, so just a little bit of research here. So for almost 20 years, the Merrimack School District and Police Department have shared a common goal of ensuring that our schools have safe environments for teaching and learning. The School Resource Officer Program is a collaborative effort by our local law enforcement, educators, students, parents, and the community as a whole. Our hope is that our resource officers can focus their time on providing valuable resources to school personnel, including educators, administrators, and school counselors, fostering a positive relationship with students and families, and developing strategies to resolve problems that affect our students with the goal of protecting all who enter our schools so that they can reach their fullest potential. Our current reality also includes a drug epidemic, national increases of school-related shootings, and our educators and students increasingly impacted by trauma. With all of this, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we need to consider the investment the district makes in ensuring that our resource officers have specific trainings regarding the work we expect them to accomplish. This is and should be an expectation for every member of our school team. Tonight, I'm requesting that we add $6,000 into the district's professional development account unit to pay for our 2 school resource officers, or more. That's the $6,000 to $10,000 if the committee as a whole feels like that's something that they would consider, but $6,000 for the 2 resource officers to attend 2 trainings, and specifically talking about the ALICE training I talked about last week. That stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. And it's a specific training that several educators, law enforcement, and so forth go through to protect our kiddos and our educators in the event of an active shooter type of situation. There is training on this actually this summer in Massachusetts, so we're not talking about flight or anything like that. It's fairly reasonable. For 2 of our officers to attend that, it would be about $1,800. So then we're looking at the National School Safety Conference. That's a conference that's held nationally every year for school resource officers, also for educators to come together to talk about how we ensure students are engaged in a healthy learning environment. It also includes mental health training for police officers as well as educators and so forth to help them on their way, and that would be about $3,400. So to make sure that, you know, there's things that I'm sure I'm not thinking about in this budget, I did round up to about $6,000 to allow for that travel.
Questions or comments? Kevin? I'll get you, Carol, don't worry.
I think this is this is from Matt. Are we at $243,000 for professional development already? Is that right? I just want to make sure I have the right numbers in front of me.
Yeah, let me look at the right account number, because there's a couple in here. And give me a second.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question while he looks that up?
Go ahead.
How many SROs do we have in the District 2?
We do have 2.
And they are at the high school and the middle school?
Correct.
While Matt's looking it up, if we got any other questions or comments. Carol, do you have anything?
Yeah, do we know if the 2 resource officers are currently eligible for professional development through the Merrimack Police Department?
They do receive, as you would imagine, any police officer would receive the professional development that they need for their police officer training. The current chief and former chiefs have also been willing to do other types of training as community policing is concerned. Certainly in Merrimack, there's been a lot of opportunity, not a lot, I shouldn't say a lot. There has been some opportunity for professional development around the drug epidemic and those kinds of things. The trainings that I'm specifically talking about are those that would greatly and positively impact the school district and our expectations of them here.
And that training is geared towards schools.
Yes, both of these are. Yep.
And that wouldn't be covered under their master employment agreement with the town of Merrimack for that.
I don't know that I would say it would not be covered under there. There is very limited amount of funding for the entire police department to get additional training. My goal here is to ensure that the district is showing its support and investment in, as necessary to make sure that our officers have the training that they need to do what we're expecting them to do in everyday situations, but also in an emergency situation.
Naomi,
Aye.
I'll get you next, Carol.
Thank you for
Yep,
bringing this up.
okay.
It's an important topic I hadn't given enough thought in the past. I was curious how those 2 were chosen. Now, you mentioned cost and nearby, and that's very much appreciated, but I have no knowledge of how many such events happen, which ones are considered what tier of event, and so forth. So I'd be very interested in some of the thought that went into the selection of those particular 2.
So I did have a conversation with the 2 resource officers to find out what kinds of trainings that they're hearing about in their circle of school resource officers that have been effective. So that is a conversation that I had with them. Also did a little bit of research on my own just to look through what folks were saying were quality. I don't think that we should send anybody, including our educators, to professional development. That's not really going to benefit the work that they're doing. So I did some work on that. There are several different kinds of trainings regarding the ALICE, for example, that I mentioned. There are like trainings, but this one has been around for a little while. There's some evidence behind it that I really, as a person that works in my field, really look for. And so those 2, and I wanted to make sure that I was being mindful that this is something new, or at least to my knowledge, it's something new for the district to be investing in. And so I wanted to make sure that I wasn't, asking for $30,000 or $40,000 worth of professional development when that wasn't exactly necessary. We certainly want our resource officers in our schools as much as possible, and we want them to be able to come back and give some cross training to what they've learned. So having starting with these 2, I think is a wise choice. Yeah, sure.
All set? Carol, you are next.
Yeah, have you had any discussion with, for lack of better word, the chain of command at the Merrimack Police Department to see if they have any thoughts on this?
I did reach out to Chief Roy to let her know that I was interested in making this, and she did tell me that she is in full support. And I'll just say, in knowing Chief Roy, any kind of she's always been very supportive of any kind of professional development that we can offer any of her as a community of Merrimack, not just the school district, but as a community of Merrimack, and offering any professional development that her officers need to do their jobs for all of our citizens here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Amanda?
So I have a question about the Allison training, because at my school district, their goal is to have 2 staff members trained to train the other staff members. So is the Alice training where these officers would go and then train the other staff, and not just the middle school and the high school, but we have past history showing that this also happens in elementary schools, unfortunately. So would all the elementary school staff be trained as well?
That's an excellent question. I mean, I wouldn't want to overstep my bounds on the Budget Committee by stating of what the school district would do with that information. I would certainly want to lean on Superintendent Chaffrey for that. I will say that it's a certification program. So when they go to the ALICE training, they actually are certified. That certification lasts for 3 years, and the expectation from that certification is to come back and provide that cross-training of what they learned to other educators, even students and families in those situations. That's great. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any other question on Heather's motion? Matt?
Can I just,
Yep.
can I clarify the account number you were talking about? Because I've got several here that are support staff. They're all driven by the teacher contract, and I have one that's administrative improvement, which is a better fit for now.
So I had originally put in here the 100-2213-45824100 because it didn't have a contractual base to it. But I could be wrong, Matt.
Yeah, that's 3.1A in the staff development. That's part of the teacher contract.
Okay, it didn't
So-
say contract, that's why I chose it, but I'm happy to
it
change
didn't.
that.
So I would put it into administrative improvement, which is still driven by a contract, but I think it's a better fit for the time being. And if it passed, I would probably give it its own unique number. So
Okay.
the number would be, for now, 100-24-10-45-8240-00. And there's 114,000 in there.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Can I ask Matt a question?
Go ahead, Carol.
If we did this, are we incurring other costs that wouldn't be included in this, such as overtime pay for the officers to attend this?
No. No, we wouldn't.
No.
Nor is there an expectation
Okay, thank you.
on my end on that, Carol.
Kevin?
I just wanted to follow up on my question. Thanks for so the number that this would be added to is the 114,000.
That's correct.
But was I correct that it's 243,000 total that we have budgeted for across
Yeah.
all the departments?
Well, this is for the support staff, there's 78,000, there's 51 for the teachers, another 75 for the workshops. So it's more than 240,
Okay.
it's more like 300.
Okay, and if
total.
we were going to put this in the admin improvement,
Yeah.
that's 114, is it possible to pull the 6,000 out of that?
No.
That's all
Because
allocated already?
that's in each administrator's contract. We each have $6,000 for professional development, and it's in our employment contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
May I add to that, Stan,
Go right
Kevin?
ahead.
So as I mentioned last time, I have absolutely no intention because I think the professional development should be included for all the staff in our school district. So I would not be supportive at all of any move to take money from the school district in order to, that they've already budgeted for their professional development. That would never be a goal of mine.
Up until recently, there's never been any talk of professional development for the SROs in the schools. And it's kind of tough to take it out of a contracted item because the administration has to account for all that money for the people that are under that contract. I think this is an excellent idea to go ahead and do. And for $6,000, I think we get a much bigger payback. And granted, we are giving guidance and direction to the school board. They could take the $6,000 and do absolutely nothing with it, or they could buy donuts for everybody. And we won't have any say in that, but it would show up in the operating budget coming from the Budget Committee, and that is our position. And it's the school board's right to use the money as they see fit, but I believe it's a very good idea and should be advanced. Any other comments? David?
Would there be any cost for the SROs to then pass the training on to staff? Or would it take away from another day of professional development that they'd be doing?
So again, not my intention of that, the latter. I definitely don't want that as part of what I would be proposing. So the cost of the training that I did the research on, considering hotel for the night or travel to the national conference, typical travel costs, came to just a little over the $5,000 mark. The intention of the $6,000 mark was to be able to provide some assistance for that cross training. We would have to look into that, though, to work with the school district to find out what all of those costs would be. What would they envision what that cross training would be? Who would it be with? I think there's a lot of questions that would need to be asked for that purpose, but there is a little cushion in there to allow for some of that to happen. But I think further conversation needs to happen.
Sure.
But that's my opinion. You might want to ask the district as well.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah, no, I, agree with what Heather said as far as her philosophy behind this. So, yeah.
But I mean, so I'm a little familiar with Alice. I know the SROs would then pass on training to our staff. So that's another day where they're either staying late or half a day. I don't know how that would be handled. But wouldn't they be part of the training? Wouldn't they be talked to about Alice training? Or no? I could be way off at that.
I believe so, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but how that happens and the timing of it and those kinds of things, I think there's lots of different opportunities in there for that.
Okay.
But that's a great question. I appreciate it.
Shelley? Oh, you're just moving your hands. I know. Carol, last go around.
No, I'm all set.
Okay, seeing no other hands up, we will vote on to add $6,000 for the purpose of professional development for the student resource officers. And please understand, this is legally, it gets added to the bottom line. But we ask the school board, this is where we think it should be added to. We do have a roll call vote. And Mrs. Heinrich, are you ready to do the roll call vote? And if you would grab a microphone, please, so that they can hear their names called.
Mrs. Lang.
Yes.
Ms. Gage.
Yes.
Ms. Heidberger.
Yes.
Ms. Schoenfeld.
I will abstain, please.
Mr. Guagliumi.
In favor.
Mr. Eelk.
Yes.
Ms. Nunez.
Yes.
Mrs. Nunez. Mr. Hanson.
Yes.
Mr. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich.
Yes.
Mrs. Jacoby.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
10-0-1.
9, 10, 10-0-1.
So we have added $6,000 to the bottom line. And I appreciate, Naomi, your position that you're in here, because you have to represent the school board.
Thank you, everyone.
Now, are there any other adjustments, $2,500 or more?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
No.
$1,000 or more?
No.
I have no further adjustments to the budget.
I was waiting for you to do that. Are there any other adjustments to the operating budget?
No.
No.
Okay. We have added $6,000 to the budget, which will make it $74,817,416. And I move that amount to go to the public hearing. Do I have a second? Seconded by many. All those in favor of presenting that number of the operating budget for the public hearing? Mrs. Heinrich, you have to do a roll call vote.
Ms. Heidberger,
Yes.
Ms. Schoenfeld,
Abstain, please.
Mrs. Gage,
Yes.
Mr. Bobbitt,
Yes.
Mr. Heinrich,
Yes.
Mrs. Nunez.
Yes.
Mr. Gualiumi,
Yes.
Mrs. Lang,
Yes.
Mr. Eelk,
Yes.
Mrs. Jacoby,
Yes.
Results are 10-0-1 in favor.
and Mr. Hanson.
Oh, sorry about that. Whoops, I spoke early. I apologize. Thank you, Mrs. Heinrich.
It
So
was
that,
unanimous.
well, it's not unanimous, but in a sense it is.
10-0-1.
Right. That will be the number that'll be presented
It's an interesting-
at the public hearing. Should there be no further adjustments before the public hearing. Also, please keep in mind that after the public hearing, when we reconvene our meeting, no new purposes can be brought into the budget. We can change dollar amounts, but if somebody wants to put some crazy purpose that wasn't in there, we cannot do that. It's against the law. Now, what I would like to ask my fellow Budget Committee members, do you feel comfortable this evening voting on the warrant articles, or would you like to wait until next Tuesday night? I'd just like a show of hands, unofficial vote.
Can I
if you
say
will.
something, Stan?
Yes, Carol.
Unless somebody strongly feels differently, I would really like to hold off with all the disconnections and stuff. I missed a whole lot of stuff, and I kind of want to touch base with Pat and get feedback on what I missed.
All righty. Any objections to that? And we will vote next Tuesday night on the warrant articles before the public hearing. Well, Carol, you got your wish.
Thank you.
Now, do any of our superintendent-type people have anything else they would like to bring up to the Budget Committee or say? Okay. At this time, we will have public participation.
There was somebody here.
There was somebody here, and now it's a blue seat again.
Do we have any idea what his contribution would have been?
He was a parent of a couple of school kids. That's all I know. Next week, we will start at 7 o'clock. Hopefully, we'll have some minutes to approve. We will vote on the warrant articles, and if there are any other adjustments, we can do it then, or we can do it after the public hearing. Doesn't matter. As long as it's in the budget, we're good to go. Anybody else have anything else, other than getting the heck out of here, they want to bring up? Thank you all very much for your great questions. I will, oh, wait a minute, Carol. Well, I'm going to say goodnight, Carol.
All right, good night.
Okay. Somebody want to make a motion to get out of here? Kevin Barber, do I have a second? Yes. Shelley Jacoby and a lot of others. All those in favor of adjournment? Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous. We're out of here. Thank you much, and we'll see you.